actually, I can actually have a good story about to lead this in. So,
To lead this in, episode 6
Yeah.
of the Me Time podcast.
so my buddy sent me this this link that he found. I don't know where he saw it at, but he sent me this link of the title is 13 times social justice warriors went way too far.
Okay.
And going into it, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be getting some sort of bias thing in here. And just some of the things that I was reading were so funny. One was like a tweet that they had screenshot, and it was someone saying, "Ladies, ask your husband if he'd still love you if you got a sex change. If he says no, walk to your room and start packing your bags." Yes, because that's super logical.
Wait, before you hop into this, explain what a social justice warrior is, in case somebody doesn't know.
Well, do you want the real what idea of what a social justice warrior is, or all the dumbasses out there?
Give me the definition, and then we'll go
So, Google, according to this site, is Google defines the term as a person who expresses or promotes socially progressive views, is what it is. But now it's people who are actually super regressive in their views.
So give an example of a common super progressive view of a social justice warrior.
So I would consider myself like a classical social justice warrior, I guess you could say, and just acknowledging that there are certain benefits of being white and things that you can't really deny. Not so much that it's any of our fault. It's just things that are, I hate saying entitled, but just things that we deal with or don't deal with, I should say. Like the fact that I saw, it was a while ago, but if you have a more cultural or more ethnic sounding name, you're less likely to get a job. I think just someone who addresses those ideas can be considered a social justice warrior.
So an advocate for
equality is what I would say.
Yeah.
But now you have people like that, or people who say someone tweeted hey, I just met you and this is crazy, but you're a white guy who attributes his wealth to hard work instead of privilege, and I hate you. It's really? People are just, and it's can go both ways, or just people who I feel like they just want to get mad about something. Mm-hmm. This is one that I actually saw a lot, and it was this idea that a mom had a child who was born deaf. Okay. And they installed a cochlear implant so he could hear, because hearing is good. And then people got mad because you're denying him his ability to participate in deaf culture.
That doesn't make any sense.
And I'm like, come on, really? You're going to say that hearing is bad?
Oh,
and,
wow.
And I mean, it's not, I don't know, it's just so regressive in its ideology of wanting your kid to be able to hear is something that's bad.
But do you think that was a genuine thought?
Yes.
Really?
Why 100%?
Because that is wild, man.
Yeah, people were mad, or not even going to something so more basic. In Canada now, they're offering when you're born on your birth certificate, you're not male or female. There's an M and an F and then an X, so you can be somehow be non-gendered or non-sexed on your birth.
And you decide for yourself.
Yes,
when you're
older. But that doesn't make sense, because if you can't be no sex,
right?
You have certain intersex people, very small minority who are born XXY, like Klinefelter syndrome, genetic anomaly. I'm willing to, for that I'll allow it.
You'll allow the X.
But to be I'm gonna let him or her decide that once they're of age of what they want to be. It's no, you can't decide. You
should definitely identify.
Not even identify.
Well, no, when you're born, biologically,
right.
If you're a male or a female, and yes, you might develop, and as you grow up, you realize that you think you're in the wrong gender, that kind of thing, and that's fine. But I feel biologically, because once you let that shit start to slip, right there, letting them decide, I feel that is a slippery slope that's gonna get bad. It's gonna snowball into something really crazy.
And I'm sure this just might be a joke one, but again, it's an idea that I've seen expressed absurdly, to an absurd amount, is you're a male supremacist if you believe men are naturally masculine and women are naturally feminine, that gender is innate and biological rather than a socially constructed product of culture. You believe gender is good rather than an oppressive hierarchy, and you believe that men have a right to claim a child that formed inside of a woman's body, aka support for fatherhood rights. What we just went so fucking stupid, and people will support these ideas and not see any sort of problem with it.
Do you think gender is socially constructed?
So sex and gender, I will say, are two different things.
Yes.
Sex is your chromosomes, XX or
biological.
XY. Yes. gender. And here's the thing: is people will say gender is socially constructed, so we shouldn't have it. But then they'll be like, you should acknowledge my choice of gender pronoun. But you're essentially, those are two juxtaposing ideas.
For sure.
Because how can you have a gender pronoun if gender is socially constructed? In theory, if gender is socially constructed, it shouldn't matter what your pronouns are because it's all a social construct.
So what's the argument for gender being socially constructed?
That I will 100% get behind. It's like this ideology of like...
You will support that idea.
Yeah, yes, that gender is a social construct.
He gave quotes.
Yeah.
He gave quotes on the yes.
I mean, like, to deny that there are certain traits that are more there are more masculine traits. Like, you can look at an MMA fighter and think, that's a masculine guy.
I'm going to devil's advocate the fuck out of you this episode.
Oh, go ahead. So I think you can look at that and say he's technically more masculine. But those aren't 100% attributed to just guys. Like,
true.
You can look at females who say, like, they possess more classically masculine traits. And it's not like a social construct. It's like things that have been around, like, due to our biology. Like, okay, like, typically someone who is more, I don't want to say like athletic, but testosterone is a better growth hormone than estrogen. If you're more muscular, looking at that biologically, I will say you are more masculine, but I don't think that that's necessarily like, I'm probably juxtaposing myself right here now, but to say like it's more masculine, I don't think it degrades a female to say that she has more masculine traits, if that makes sense. But I think that
I would agree with you.
And I think that there is, like, I forgot who I was listening. It was a Joe Rogan podcast that they were talking about. It's like him and Michael Shermer or someone like that. No, it's not. Thaddeus Russell.
Okay.
He is 100% postmodernist and says that everything is all social construct, completely disregarding biology. And his view is that you can look at Chuck Liddell and he's like on one end of the masculine spectrum, and you can have like Andy Dick or Milo, who is on the complete other end of the spectrum, and they're both males, but they possess different ranges of masculinity, I guess you could say.
Okay.
And I will get behind that, but I don't think that just because Milo is very feminine in his nature doesn't make him not a man.
But here's where I'm going to stop you. So now, but you're putting, and I'm devil's advocating here because I think it'll be fun. You're putting intentions behind the word masculine and feminine. Mm-hmm. So I just Googled, so like, what does masculine mean to you?
Like someone who's a hunter, like the typical masculine roles that before we even had all these things to worry about. I don't know, fighting people, being more aggressive. Like, just because there are, I think it was Gad Saad that said that just because you can point to one example, just like disapproving that point, like I could point to myself and say, well, I don't fight, so therefore all masculinity natures aren't aggressive.
Right.
But by and large, boys fight.
More than female?
Yes, I will 100%.
Well, that's
physical aggression is a masculine trait. And I'm not going to say like beating your wife is appropriate, because there are other traits that are natural, but they shouldn't be allowed. Mm-hmm. Like I was reading something on Ruby Rose, the person from Orange is the New Black, because in the podcast they were saying how she originally saved up because she wanted a gender transition surgery, but she decided against it.
In the show or in real life?
In real life. When she was young, she wanted to become a male, but she realized that. So her quote is, it wasn't until much later in life that I realized I could do both and be androgynous and not have to necessarily be womanly based on what I thought society expected of me. Nor did I need to transition into a man to be able to have that freedom today, which 100% I will agree with. Like, you don't, just because you're born a female, XX, doesn't mean you should be stereotyped into this ideology of you have to, like, get your hair done and wear makeup and wear high heels and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And likewise, just because you're a guy, I don't think that it doesn't, like, men don't cry is the stereotypical one. And just because you're born a male doesn't mean that you can show emotion and all these sorts of like expressive ideologies.
No, agreed. What was the friggin' first thing we were talking about? The
stupid people that are like so regressive on their ideologies, like the fact that gender isn't biological or sex isn't biological or things like that, and where you can't have these opposing viewpoints, otherwise like you're a sexist, you're homophobe, or you're transphobic, or all of these different ideas. Like these are female pants. I don't care. They're comfortable. Got them from the women's section. I'm not gonna let like women's pants, the fact that they're women's pants, stop me from wearing
deter
them.
you from wearing them.
Yeah, because they're pants and they're comfortable, and I kind of like how they look.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was watching something on so I saw 2 commercials. One was Nutrisystem and one was Nutrisystem for men.
Ooh.
And I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, what the fuck is the difference between food? Like, how can one food be better for to help women lose weight, but guys can't take the same thing women take? So they have like Nutrisystem for men.
Was it? So what is Nutrisystem? Is that
it's like one of like those
blender?
No, it's like Jenny Craig.
Like a food,
or like Seattle, something like a healthy eating diet thing.
In that case, I could kind of see a split between men and women there because I bet there are supplements and like food choices that are more beneficial to the male sex.
But it's not supplements. It's literally just like they send you shakes and protein bars and food.
But what if it's like engineered to maximize performance?
I don't think that Nutrisystem is getting. It's just food. Like if you look at the commercials, like
it sounds like their whole business model is
based on this inferior ideology.
No, it's like based on like nutrition, right? So if a nutritionist, if I walked into a nutritionist, 180 pound male, and then my friend Lisa, who's like 100 nothing pounds, walks in there. And I think we would be on and we both said like we want to lose weight or we want to gain muscle. I think we would be on very different nutritional systems.
Maybe like calorically wise, but in terms of like, but I don't think that that's what it's based on. I mean, I could be wrong, and if they are basing it calorically, okay, I'll say that. But in that case, why don't you just have one Nutrisystem instead of like a whole other? Because it's not even like. It's Nutrisystem, which has all females advertising, and then Nutrisystem for men, which has like Terry Bradshaw and like other guys doing it. And if that was the case,
if it was the same exact food, it would be stupid. But I have a feeling, why would it be stupid?
Yeah, why would it be stupid?
If it was the same exact food?
Because, what do you mean? Oh, okay. So you're saying like if Nutrisystem for men and Nutrisystem are the same food? It's
like Nutrisystem for men and women. You sign up, and they both send you the same exact stuff.
But I think that would be based on calories.
Yes. That I think that would be silly. No, like not even based on calories. Like
so like say like
3 bananas and
whether you're a guy or a girl.
Steak. Yes.
Guy or girl.
Guy. This is so confusing. But I think
see what happens when you have to deal with dumb people.
Okay, but getting back to Nutrisystem. So if you were to sign up for Nutrisystem for men, and Lisa were to sign up for Nutrisystem for women, and they both sent you like I don't really know
like 2,000 calories of like
the same shit. Yeah, exactly same stuff. I think that would be silly. So that's why I think like having like a Nutrisystem for women and men like might not be a bad idea because it might cater to your direct needs and wants when it comes to.
But here's the thing: instead of having Nutrisystem. Generic Nutrisystem, which is advertised towards women, and Nutrisystem for men. Why not just have Nutrisystem, and in the commercial, they have men and women talking the same way.
Whether you're a man or a woman, you can customize your nutrition plan.
Right, and then when you sign up for it, you say, I'm a male, so they'll send you maybe like more protein or more calories.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
But the fact that it's like essentially like advertising because, no, a guy and a girl can't have the same thing. Like, it's weird because...
They can, but it might not be as beneficial.
No. Like food wise, the only real difference in terms of like necessity is like calories. Men need more calories because they weigh more.
But I don't think that's true because like
men don't need more protein.
Right, I'm not getting into protein. I'm saying I looked up when I was looking up sugar and stuff. Like women are supposed to have 25 grams of sugar a day maximum, based on the daily nutritional value, and men can have 35 grams a day. So just like typical, I think they're averaging out like heights, weights, and stuff. So right there, there's a nutritional difference.
But again, here's what I'm saying: is they're advertising in 2 separate things. Why not just have one company and then?
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
I get that part.
It's like, oh, you're a man, you can't eat the things that are advertised for women.
It just seems like a weird business model. I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, like it's stupid.
I think it makes sense, like for what they're doing, but it just sounds like they're wasting money and resources by separating it.
Yeah, but guys.
But maybe that's how advertising
works. But guys
works.
can't go and eat the same thing that women do, man. Come on, that's feminine of you. You're a little pussy.
Yeah, but dude, if you honestly feel that way, like I know you were just saying that and like satirical, but if you honestly feel that way, I feel like you have freaking like personality disorder a little bit, or like
for what?
for you saying like men and women can't, I know you're like joking, like men and women can't eat the same thing. Like, you're a pussy, like that. If you honestly, if that's like a genuine thought, there's a lot
of people who think that. Though,
yeah, but then I think that's not like something's going on psychologically.
Oh,
where
dude, there's so many broed out people that think that. They're
insecure and stuff.
Well, and it's weird because it's like I'm like so. That's why I think that the gender is almost like a social construct, because you have dudes who are like, yeah, man, if you don't eat fucking meat, you're a pussy. It's like, what? What sort of like, where's the rationale in that?
Yeah.
But then like you have people on the flip side. So my buddy was, I want to see his text. So he was at a bar, and he has hyphenated last name. Like, you know, like his parents, like his mom didn't take his dad's. His mom didn't take his dad's name, so he's hyphenated. He said he was at a bar and they couldn't find his tab because of the two last names, which is common. And whenever he says it, he always jokes about like having two last names. But he told the bartender, if you ever have kids, just pick one last name and just don't give them two. It's so much harder.
Yeah.
And this, I want to see what he says. And yeah, so he goes, and this chick that heard him say that started to freak out that he shouldn't push his views on others, and that he has like his views are anti-feminist and regressive. Oof. For saying that he shouldn't have two last names. Like, I don't like, that's where this whole like regressive left ideology comes from, where it's like you can't speak your mind, which isn't inherently right or wrong. He says pick a last name. Mm-hmm. Like, and it's like,
he's coming like based off of like inconvenience,
right?
When you're out, not right. Like it's anything to do.
And it's not like pushing like this toxic masculinity, that bullshit phrase coming out.
Yeah.
It's just like this girl just butts in. It's like, how dare you say that? That's not feminine of you. That's regressive to women. It's like, what? Like, that's so ass backwards of, and it's just there's so many things like that where, like, it's like they try to be so like progressive that it's just super regressive. Mm-hmm. Like, I saw someone say, okay, so I was talking to someone who said that because I'm a white male, I'm not allowed to have a viewpoint on something.
What?
Like, and because it was around the 4th of July, and he put a status up saying, like, and it was in Spanish, and it was like, you shouldn't celebrate the victories that were born from like bloody borders. Like, you shouldn't be happy about the 4th of July because of like the shit that America's done in the past. And I'm like, okay, well, I get that, but look at literally every other country, and it's built on taking over other people, enslaving the people that you capture, and then using them for labor. So like, if you want to say like, don't be proud of America, you should literally have no national pride at all. And you know, I'm very anti-national pride, but I mean, that's, first of all, that's not what 4th of July is about. It's about gaining freedom from England, which we like, it wasn't based on like, it wasn't like the Civil War where we like overcame slavery or anything like that. It was just getting freedom from a country.
Right, and wasn't that based on religious beliefs?
What?
Us.
No, that was just based on because England was a colonialist power like we are now, and trying to instill their ways on us.
I thought we wanted to practice religion.
No, not for originally people came over here for religious freedom to not be persecuted.
Right.
But not like the American Revolution itself was because we're like, dude, you're over there, we're here.
Okay, I was talking about like initially.
Oh yeah, no. Which, I mean, and if even, I guess I'm qualifying to fit my own personal beliefs, but if you were to say like you shouldn't be proud of like or celebrate the 4th of July based on because America is still a colonial power and we like overcame this colonial ideology. If you were to say that, I'd be like, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But just how he framed it, and I'm like, listen, man, I get where you're coming from, but the 4th of July is essentially like coming together in community with all these people despite our differences, and kind of shooting for this like ideological like worldview of like shooting for the ideal of what America could be. He was like, dude, you're a white male. You don't have the like you don't get to have a voice. You should listen to me. Like, your view is like inherently wrong. I'm like,
dude, I don't think,
do you listen to what you're saying? Because that inherently in itself is regressive, racist, like sexist, whatever you want to say, like throw an ist on it, and that's what it is. Like, you're shutting me down because I don't fit your perception of who should have a view.
Right. And you know how I feel about that. It's like, I think everybody deserves a voice. Like, no matter how ridiculous you think the idea is, like, I think it's worth hearing out pretty much any topic that someone wants to talk about.
Yeah. And I think that I have to figure out how to phrase this. Like, it's not that my view matters less, but I think I have more of a responsibility to listen to opposing viewpoints. Not that my viewpoint should be shut.
Specifically?
Well, like, because I don't, like, it kind of goes back to, like, intersectionalism of, like, each person's experience in America and life is different. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, not just me, but like everyone has an opportunity to listen, but on things that don't necessarily pertain to me, I think that
You're saying me as like a white male?
Yeah. I think that it's a higher responsibility to listen and understand where these people are coming from.
For sure.
But I don't think that just because I am a white male, it makes my viewpoint any less like valid.
Totally. Well, I would say that doesn't even, in a perfect world, that doesn't even apply only to white males. Mm-hmm. I think like everybody should have that viewpoint,
right?
Of like having the responsibility of like listening.
Well, not just me as a white male, but say like if I'm like, say how we just talked about like transgender things like that. Like I am still allowed to have my viewpoint, mm-hmm. but I think that I also have a responsibility to, since I'm not transgender or like part of the LGBT community, I have like a responsibility, like a moral responsibility to listen and find out where these people are coming from and their life experiences. Because I mean, it's like essentially, like, I hate phrasing it like this, but like the straight life experience is like the standard that we're all used to. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's almost like a duty to at least listen and see where these people are coming from, but it's not like you're straight, you don't get to have a viewpoint on this idea.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone were to argue the opposite of that, mm-hmm. I'd be like, why does one person have more of a voice than another person?
Because they're historically oppressed, and you don't understand. How dare you say that your viewpoint matters more?
But then I would say to them, like, what you're doing right now is like oppressing, just oppressing a different group of people.
No, you can't say that, because I come from a place where I don't have power, so it's not oppressive.
Well, but you're oppressing me by telling me I can't say anything, is what I would say.
That's a microaggression. By accusing me of something, you're actually microaggressing
at me.
That's stupid. No, trust me, it's stupid, but you would be very, like, I don't know if it's just I have a higher, I don't know if I communicate more with these dumbasses, but like a lot of people that I see like interact with on a daily basis and like see through Facebook and have met like at school share these viewpoints. And I'm like, how is this even like logical? Like, I don't know, are you familiar with what happened at Evergreen College with Brett Weinstein?
No.
So at Evergreen, there's this thing which it's called the Day of Absence. And it's like an old school thing where like people of color and like minorities wouldn't show up to kind of like display what they mean to that community, which awesome. I think that's super cool, because I think that if you
so what's the argument? We're not going to show up.
No. So they did this, or like in the past it was always like people of color wouldn't show up for a day, just like show what they mean to the campus.
But I just hold on. I'll let you finish. But like I don't understand that. Like why are they not showing up?
So originally it's based off a play where the people of like the black people in the town didn't show up to work or anything like that for the day, just because they kind of felt like overlooked and used to show like what their inherent value was to the town, like what they brought.
Like, so when Google blacked out their whole website that one day to like support what's the word, when they're privacy on the internet.
Yeah.
They like, do you remember that? They like they blocked out their whole website just to be like, this is what it would be like if they wanted to censor everything on the internet.
Right, yeah. So very similar to that. But there was like I forgot what group it was, but one of the multicultural groups on campus said, we're going to flip it. So now instead of people of color not showing up, white people shouldn't show up to show their support and solidarity. And this one professor who has a history of standing up for like liberal ideologies and liberal values is like, that's racist. Like, if you're going to tell me I can't be somewhere strictly because I'm white, that's 100% racist, because you're essentially telling me what I can and can't do based off my skin color. Like, it's not like before where these people would choose to not show up to show what they mean. This is like you telling someone what they can and can't do.
I did hear about this.
So naturally people got pissed, and then he was teaching a class, and like a group of students came up and were like chanting and rioting outside his class. So he walked out and he like addressed them for a little bit, and he was like, do you want to have a discussion about this? Because if you want to discuss this, I will. And they're like, no, you don't get to talk. You get to listen. And I'm like, and it's that. And then he was at a board meeting, and it was like one of like the black faculty there was telling him like how bad of a person he was because he's white. And he was like, well, can you like educate me on this? Because like I don't get where you're coming from. And she was like, it's not my duty to educate you. You should know. And I've had that happen to me multiple times.
It's crazy.
And it just doesn't make sense, because you have like this, and I think that that's what led to the president that we have now, because it's like we essentially got like so far in like this progressive ideology, air quotes, that it's actually super regressive. And it's like for some reason it's not clicking of why these ideas don't make sense. And like I've been called like a racist before because I say these things. I'm like, dude, that's like telling someone that they can't do something because of their skin color is racist. It doesn't matter if like black people are historically oppressed; they can still be racist.
Completely.
And
the thing is, I don't understand. I don't understand why that day would even exist of African Americans not showing up to campus to show like how much they'd be missed or something.
Not show. That's a bad phrase. Like not to show up how much they'd be missed, but just to like show, I guess like what they mean to that community.
To that community.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like the role, like the value that they are.
Okay. Well then, like I feel like no group of people should even have to do that anymore because like yes, they have been historically oppressed.
Yeah.
In like obviously slavery, everything. Horrible, but like by doing that day, like slavery is over in the United States.
Yeah.
By doing that, you're bringing back that oppression. Like, why don't we all move forward? And as long as like you're moving forward, I think everyone else will be. And then like, but by doing something like that, I feel like you're living in the past and keeping that alive.
Well, yeah, slavery's gone, but there's still a lot of resonances of slavery and
it's completely wrong.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. That's. You know, like that should. I can't believe that people are still racist against any group of people.
Yeah,
it's a skin color. It makes no sense at all. But and it's probably way easier for me to say this, but like if we could all just move past.
Yeah, because you're a white cisgendered male. How dare you say these ideologies?
Do you see where I'm coming from though? Like by doing things like that, and there's definitely nothing wrong with like February being like. Black Pride Month, like that's great. Like celebrate your culture, celebrate your heritage. That's awesome. Like who cares about that? Peacefully do that. But why bring up like something like this is what we mean to the community? Like this is what it would be like if we weren't here. For some reason, to me, that just seems like a weird way to show that.
Yeah, I'm kind of like how like Google did it. I guess it's like this just because I think that it's something that can be.
It's just impactful.
Yeah, just kind of like help show that. Like those views, I guess you could
like, wouldn't it be better if they just had a day where instead of like not showing up, it was a day like educate your peer or something, like research the thing that you're trying, like research the play that you're basing this off of, and like share with somebody like the impact of that play or something. Not like let's all not show up and it's like I don't know, like research a day thing is just like an idea I had, but just something else.
Yeah, I mean I get where it's coming from because I think that it's I don't know like I get
I feel like you're fueling controversy by doing something like that because like if that day didn't exist, that guy wouldn't have had riots outside his door, and then I think I've heard about this guy didn't it eventually like people were using megaphones and it got like borderline like almost like dangerous kind of like with the rioting and
police
stuff.
told them to not come to campus because they couldn't
so now this
security.
whole like dangerous riot situation arose from something that I think could have been handled in a better way.
Well, it could have been handled in a better way if because like before they never had issues because it was like a voluntary choice of like people of color to not show up, and then they flipped it to say that you're white, you shouldn't show up, which is where everything got mad or where everything started because
so they're saying white people instead of black people not showing up.
Yeah, so it wasn't like
just no white people can show up.
Yeah, so it wasn't like he said like this day's dumb, like you shouldn't have a day of absence. It was they flipped it and said white people to show their support shouldn't show up to campus.
Dude, that's so.
And that's when he was like, no, something about that doesn't seem right. And then like it got so like. It just got so bad, and it's like this is such like a common thing on campus where it's like things have gotten so like regressive, like that the president of the school was holding like some sort of function, and they had chairs and food, but white people couldn't sit down or eat. It was only for the people of color.
That's like it's what you're doing by that is like
it's like flipping the script.
Oh, it's ridiculous! It's the same exact thing. It's like you're completely supporting. Racism by doing that.
And it's like this guy was called a racist because essentially he didn't support it. And it's like, no. Like, and that kind of gets into like this deeper idea where it's like somehow like people like on like the very far end of the left are just trying to, instead of being like for like these progressive like ideas to lift everyone up, it's if I disagree with you, so I'm going to call you a racist and a sexist and I'm not going to let you speak. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't think that Milo I disagree fundamentally with pretty much everything he says.
Milo
Yiannopoulos.
Yes. In case people are listening and don't know, because I know I know who he is, but look up Milo Yiannopoulos.
Like, I disagree pretty much with everything that dude says, and I mean he's not allowed to speak on campuses now. Like, he's not promulgating hate speech,
but he certainly should be allowed to speak.
Yeah, 100%. But like,
as long as he's doing it peacefully and not screaming in somebody's face or hurting somebody physically, That's yeah.
And I mean, so he was supposed to speak at University of Washington's campus when I was out in Seattle, and people were getting 2 people were shot on campus because things just got so violent.
Shot?
Yeah, I don't know if it was the police shot them or they were shot by someone, but people were shot at the riot.
That's nuts.
And it's what, dude? Just because you disagree with someone, one, doesn't make them a racist, doesn't make them a homophobe, doesn't make them any of these derogatory terms that you want to throw on them. You just disagree with them. Just because you disagree doesn't mean that you should be shutting down their voice, which is so weird because I would think you would agree that I'm a very liberal person, but on so many of these issues I find myself agreeing more with conservative people, and I'm what, if someone like me, who I would consider myself pretty liberal, you can verify or disagree.
Yeah, I would.
Is erring towards conservative people, something is very wrong here.
Maybe you're transitioning into more of a libertarian.
No, by no means. I still think, because libertarians is essentially the government, a very small government, and I'm still pro big government. I'm just very pro I mean, people should be able to do whatever they want. I said, if I
that's a broad statement, man.
Yeah, okay, obviously so long as it's not harming anyone, do what you want. I don't, and say what you want. I mean, so long as it's not hate or speech promoting violence,
right?
Just do what you want, say what you want. I disagree with you, but it's not my ability to shut you down. I am confident enough in myself that I don't care what people say. I love listening to Milo speak. I disagree, like I said, I disagree with everything, but fuck, let him speak, I don't care. And it's just we got in this weird trend where like I said, if you disagree, you shut down someone's ability to speak, and I don't get it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we have the president that we have.
It seems like if you try to take a step back and look at what this is, it's an oversensitivity.
100%.
But where did the oversensitivity begin?
I think it started.
Why did it begin?
I think it started with a good intention, the idea,
protecting social rights, or being an advocate,
right? Not even
something,
and not even being oversensitive, but if you hear a white dude call a black dude the N-word, and speaking up against that, I think that's kind of where it started, of these very basic fundamental ideas where it's you don't want people to feel threatened, you don't want them to feel discriminated against, but then it kind of snowballed, and then it was well, you shouldn't say, I don't think you should say that, so I'm going to take my subjective view and make it objective. I'm trying to think. So, I don't think that people should speak racist things. I just don't. I think everyone's equal. But I also don't think it's I will say, hey, man, you shouldn't say that. That's offensive to people. And I guess this is a sidebar, but comedy is different from that. Because I think that comedy has a special ability to kind of point out the fallacies. But in general terms of someone calling a Muslim some derogatory term, I don't think you should say that. But likewise, I'm not going to say that you can't say that. And I think that we've, you said, that oversensitivity where we've switched from I don't think you should to you can't.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know, we're just on a very weird path.
But that's a big gray area because it's someone might argue well, are you going to stand up for something or not? So going back to using a word like the N-word or something, you could say, would you honestly say, if you heard someone call somebody that, would you say, hey, I don't think you should say that because it's offensive and it
Oh yeah, definitely. Hey man, that's not cool. I've said it before with some of my buddies will say things. I'm trying to think of what they'll say oh man, that shit's so gay, or they'll use the N-word. I'll just be yo, that's not cool, man. We're a little bit past that.
But then what if you just said fuck you, I could say whatever I want?
Yeah, you can. I'm not gonna say that you can't. Me saying dude, you can't say the N-word, he can say it 8 times if he wants to. It's me thinking that he can't.
Yeah.
I'll still stand up and be hey, that's not cool, that's offensive, it has all these racist ideologies, it's just a regressive term, and I think that it's very ignorant and uneducated to use that and have those beliefs. But I mean, just because, and I can educate him on that, and or her, how sexist of me, I know. Like I can educate them on that, but I mean, I don't have the ability to say like you can't say that. We live in America. I
think that's a really good point. Like it turned in like you said, it went from you shouldn't to you can't.
Right.
But why? I wonder why it shifted.
I don't know. Like you said, it's an oversensitization where it's like it started off with good intentions and then it just kind of.
But there's so I get that, but like, what was the catalyst? Do you think? I feel like it has something to do with the internet or like the rise in social media or something. I don't know at all, and I've never.
What do you mean by that?
Well, so I'm trying to pinpoint like.
Yeah, like I get like what, like where was the shift?
What was the catalyst of the oversensitivity shift? And I'm wondering if it was just the ability to call people out indirectly in terms of like
just like almost with like anonymity, kind of
hiding behind a keyboard.
Yeah, I don't know if you can point to like one like moment where it shifted. I think it was just like something
years
like it was,
of something,
right? And it's like how Joe Rogan always said, it's like a pendulum. So it's like we started off with like all these like racist assholes, and then we kind of like started going a little bit more. It's like, all right, a little bit more sensitivity, a little bit more knowledge and education, and then we hit like this part where people were willing to stand up and be like, hey man, you shouldn't say that, this is why, like it's offensive. And I mean, I think the offensive thing is kind of bullshit, because you can offend people are always going to be offended. But I think if you can say like it has these racist connotations, it goes back to like this repressive ideology.
You're putting people down.
Right. I mean, even putting people down. People can be put down by anything. But just like the idea of like, it has its roots in like this repressive ideology of slavery, which has very negative implications for society and all these different things. And then like we just like the pendulum just kept going a little bit more, and people were like, just, I don't know, like instead of it saying it's offensive, or instead of it being like it's repressive, it became more of like, it's offensive, and you can offend anyone you want. That's part of America. And I think that, I don't know, people just got like so, it's almost like nails on a chalkboard where it's like, ooh, I don't like that. And then as it keeps going, it's like, I don't like that, I don't like it, I don't like it, don't do it. You know what I mean? And I don't think, but I just don't think that like say like, dude, you're offensive. And then what it kind of snowballed into, it's you're offensive and you're a racist.
Yeah. Because
like by no means, I think it's...
Well, hold on. Let me stop real quick. Because you say, like, this is America. You should be able to offend whoever you want.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
But
that's what makes America America.
Right. So then, but why, when someone says that, do you tell them that they shouldn't do it?
Because it is a racist derogatory term.
You're saying... Okay.
And that's why I think you shouldn't. Hence, I think. But then it also has its roots in slavery, which, if you want to say slavery is a good thing, I don't think I have no business... like this discussion's over, because anything I say, our worldviews are just so different that anything I say doesn't matter. Right. And at that point, I can say, hey man, you shouldn't say this all I want, but the world, like someone says that, yeah, we should go back to slavery and like segregation and Jim Crow and all that, anything I say isn't going to have an effect.
It just gets a little confusing hearing like, you should be able to say whatever you want to say.
Right.
If you say whatever you want to say, I'm going to tell you that you shouldn't.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
no.
I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'll see if I can qualify, because that is a valid point. So, not you should be able to say. You can say whatever you want.
You can do anything.
Right.
You can go kill your neighbor.
Yeah.
But, like, you shouldn't.
Yeah. But, okay, so, like, the First Amendment says you can say anything you want except for, I want to say, speech that invokes violence. I'm not positive on that. So, you can say that.
Let's look it up. I'm going to look it up.
And I'm not going to say that you can't say that, but you shouldn't because of these reasons. And I get that, again, that's a very subjective thing for me to say, which is why I don't say you can't say that. I'll say you shouldn't because X, Y, and Z. And if he says, you know what, man, I have the First Amendment right, I can say whatever I want, I was like, yeah, you're right. But by saying this word, you're kind of promoting these, like I said, you're promoting these regressive ideologies based in slavery, which was a very dark, like no one denies that that's a dark time in our country's history. Yeah. And I think, again, like that's why I think it's more important to have like that viewpoint, because you can educate someone, and by that education is where you can really make these long-term changes, instead of saying like, hey man, you shouldn't say that, that's offensive. It's like, so?
I think I get it more now. So I've always had this idea of, maybe not me, I've definitely seen it somewhere, but it's like, if you yourself, like, metaphorically, like, keep your yard clean, like, take care of your home, then you'll be like setting an example that people might follow, and next thing you know, your whole neighborhood's gonna look nice.
Yeah.
And then the whole neighborhood, the whole suburb's gonna look nice.
Yeah.
And then the suburb, the state, and then it would just like branch out from there.
Yeah.
So, by doing that, like saying to someone like, hey, like, I've been big on saying like I wouldn't say that because.
Yeah,
it's like
that actually. I think that's a better way to phrase it. Actually,
yeah.
Instead of saying like you shouldn't, I should be like I wouldn't say that.
Right.
Or I would like how I said before. I'll say like, hey man, that's not cool. Like that's just not. Like, I don't know. I think that by saying like I shouldn't, I am imposing, like you said, that objective viewpoint.
Yeah.
Whereas like I feel like that's not cool. Kind of has like a little bit more like gray area, like
Wiggle
not
room.
gray area, but I mean just like I get you can say whatever you want, but
Yeah.
that's just. I mean it's kind of not.
I like saying I wouldn't because it's like I'm just speaking about myself.
Right. Yeah.
I could say
exactly.
anything about myself.
Exactly, and that's why I think by
Yeah.
like kind of like by going off of that, like by me saying like that I don't like that's not cool. I think that's me like me
Yeah.
saying like I don't think that's cool, man.
Yeah.
Or like I wouldn't say that.
Right.
Which I think, and like you said, like how you phrase like you say like I wouldn't say that because, and by I think so long as you can kind of give a rationale
You're
besides
just offering your viewpoint,
Right.
And then you're throwing it out there, and then
Uh-huh.
if they're like free to say like, well, fuck that. I don't, I don't agree with that.
Right.
It's
And
like,
I mean,
okay, cool.
Yeah. Like exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean at that point it's like all right. I mean I tried to do my best, but.
But then here's another flip for you.
Mm-hmm.
By us saying, like, you know how we're like dancing around rather than just calling somebody out, like
Yeah.
you shouldn't, don't do that. Like that's us kind of dancing around saying that. That's
Yeah.
us being like oversensitive to just like calling people out.
What do you mean?
So rather than like you and I are saying right now, like we're thinking about like ways to phrase things so that it's more impactful for people. So somebody could argue like, well, why don't you just say like, no, man, don't say the N-word. Like you shouldn't say that. That's wrong. That's being like assertive and aggressive. Whereas like you and I are being like overly sensitive to how we are going to say that.
Well, I think that it's a lot phrasing it too because you have to, like, if you tell people they're wrong, that's a very big switch for them to just shut down.
It is. It's like it's harsh.
Yeah, and it's like I saw something. It was like how to talk. I forgot who someone shared on Facebook, and it was like this psychologist or sociologist. So like how to talk to people that you disagree with, and by instantly saying you're wrong, you're essentially like they just put up a shield. Like people will put up a shield and be like, well, I don't want to listen to this asshole who thinks that he's right.
I'm not
and is-
wrong. You're wrong.
Right, and it's like moral grandstanding almost.
Yeah.
Whereas if you can kind of like, hey man, I wouldn't say that. You create like that kind of like that sense of empathy almost of like, oh well, I wonder what his viewpoints are. And by saying instead of saying like you're wrong, you're essentially placing blame almost. Whereas by saying like, hey man, I wouldn't say that because X, Y, and Z, it just helps establish a bit more of a community feel. Not community, but just it's a little more open and just you give that person space to like hear what you're saying without trying to like vilify them.
Yeah, and it's so funny because like you could just keep flipping the argument because like I just keep thinking of like how we're thinking of like the best way to say it, like what's gonna be like the way that's not so harsh.
Yeah.
And that's like us kind of you could totally say like that's us being like overly sensitive to like, and then it just keeps going overly sensitive to how to address an issue of an unpopular opinion.
Yeah.
It's like where the fuck does this end?
Yeah, I mean, it's 100% like a rabbit hole. I don't know, it's just it's weird, especially with words. And once you get into the idea of that like certain people can say certain words, it's so like that's such a gray area.
Completely.
Right, because I mean, so Bill Maher dropped the N-word on TV.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And that
I never watched that video.
And like
He was like trying to tell a joke, right?
yeah, and he got a lot of backlash for it, which understandable.
Yeah.
But the more I was thinking about it, and the more I saw it, and the more I was listening to Sam Harris, I think, and that just because, like it's weird to me, that I think we might have to cut it actually. It's weird to me that certain people can say certain things because I have to phrase this. I understand it and I get it of like flipping the switch and saying like taking something that was like racist and regressive and flipping it to kind of make it something hip and cool, especially with the N-word. And I know that word cuts very deeply for a lot of people, but it's weird to me that just because of the color of my skin, I can't say it, and that if I say it, it's offensive, but if a black dude says it, it's fine. And I think that regardless of who says it, that words, like whether I say it or whether like one of my friends from school says it, it doesn't matter. Like that word, like the roots of that word are still there.
Seated in hate.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say there is a difference between, so like if whether Bill Maher made that joke or
Ice Cube
made that joke, I still think that like it doesn't make any difference in terms of like the connotation behind it. So like since you're not familiar with it, it was he was talking to the senator from Nebraska, and he was like, oh, like, Nebraska, like, we're good, like, we're blue collar people, I think, like one of the collars, whatever it is, like, we'll get you out in the fields. And Bill Maher goes, out in the fields, I'm a house N-word.
House boy. I'm a house?
Yeah, so like compared to like someone like a slave that worked in the fields or one that worked in the house.
Oh.
And
he said that?
Yeah. And whether or not he says it or like Chris Rock says it, it's still like it doesn't change the connotation of that, like that role, even like back in the slave day. Like I don't know,
dude. I think what you're trying to say is like it's all intention.
Yeah.
Because I had a discussion with my friend Matt, shout out, from work, and we were talking about Kendrick Lamar. We're both huge Kendrick Lamar fans, and he's just like cool, like
he was at Sam's one time, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was actually on the softball team. He's just a cool dude, and so we're talking about Kendrick Lamar, and I love him because he's a therapist, and he just is like a deep thinker, and I love it. And he's like, just one day out of nowhere, he's like, hey, if you're listening to Kendrick Lamar and you're driving alone in your car, he's like, are you saying the N-word when he raps it? And I was like, dude, honestly, 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, because I don't even think about it. It's like part of the song, and like if you were to like cut that out, it like ruins the flow of the song.
Right.
And honestly, like that might sound weird, but like in that moment, like I'm like just grooving with music.
Right.
When I say that, we gonna be all right. Like I'm not gonna like censor myself.
Right.
And I was like, honestly, Matt, if you were in the car with me, I would probably do it too. Like we're singing a song.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, man, I like completely, that's like totally fine by me. And he's a black guy.
Yeah.
Like, so I just think it's like totally different when you're rapping a song.
Yeah.
And or if you see someone, a black guy, and you want to like put him down or like, or hurt his feelings in saying it. It's completely different. I think.
And it's so, and I mean, man, I feel so weird saying this because I feel like we're white, so we can't talk about it. But that's kind of like where all that whole past discussion comes from. Like if you look at like some of Chris Rock's jokes, like one of his jokes is like, there's two different types of black people. There's black people, and then and it's like, dude, if a white dude said that, shit would hit the fan and he would be booked nowhere.
Yeah.
And like it's a joke, and I think it's funny, but I think I think that we have to almost like take down these like taboos behind the words if we really want, like how you said, like to really move things forward, like to take the taboos down and really go more towards the intent. Because whether or not, because like I've been at concerts before and I'll like look around and there's like black people around me and I like won't sing along at that certain point because I'm like I don't know if they get mad. Like I don't know. I know. And like I don't want to push the button, and I mean
you don't know if everyone's like mad.
Right. And I'm like I don't want to like, I don't know. I feel like things like that, it's like such a taboo thing. Like I would never go out and like call a black dude like
the N-word.
Yeah, because obviously like that's not cool.
It's just about like, I feel like if we were to focus on it less,
and like almost take away the power, it'd be like, so like instead of
behind
like,
the word,
like if people were like, oh, cancel the show, take him off the air, don't book him anywhere, and I'm like, that just empowers, like that gives that word so much more power that he can say it once and all of these things happen. Like,
absolutely.
And like it was, I will applaud him because he had like all black. Like I don't know if you're familiar with how his show works.
Chris Rock?
No, Bill Maher.
Oh.
So he'll start off with like a 10-minute like one-on-one interview with someone, and then he'll go like a panel of 2 or 3 people, and then you'll call in like an extra panelist for like the last like 10 or 15 minutes. And the next show, it was all like people of color on there, like all African Americans, and they were just kind of educating him on like on their viewpoints and all of these things. And I forgot who it was. I think it was like Cornel West, who was like 100%. He's like, yeah, man, we just have to take away the power. Like what you said was stupid. Like you have to realize like why people were upset. And he's like, I get it. Like I was tired, which I don't think is a good excuse. Like looking back, it wasn't my smartest idea. But the fact that like because I'm white, I can't say something like that. Like I don't get that. Because like Ice Cube came on and was like, no man, we own that word now.
Well, I don't even get the joke, to be honest.
So in
Nebraska, the guy was like, in Nebraska,
we work in the fields.
he's referring to, like, is he like a farmer?
Yeah, like the Nebraskan farmers, like, yeah, come.
We're hard workers.
Well, come out and work with the fields with us. Just kind of like joke. Like I forgot what the context.
Oh, I think I get it now. Like, come out and work with us. Like, you get some really hard work done out there.
Yeah, like you'll see like what we're like.
He said like, no, I can't work in the fields. I'm a house and
yeah.
Like,
just
meaning like I only work indoors.
No, it's just like back in like the times of slavery, there was like slaves that worked in the field, which was like the much more hard work, and then there was like kind of like, I don't want to say like the good position because they were still mistreated and all that, but like working in the house, like working in like the main house was kind of like
Django Unchained, like the people that served the dinner.
Exactly.
Samuel Jackson.
Yeah, things like that.
His character in that movie.
Right.
Okay,
so he like made a joke on that.
Was this guy black? The guy who was talking to him about Nebraska?
No, he was like a white senator.
It's just a strange joke, is what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I get where he was coming from, and I mean, I'll applaud to have people on to kind of educate him on like why that wasn't cool. Because I kind of learned something myself. I'm like, oh, like I wouldn't make that joke, but I mean, I get where he's coming from. And then everyone that I saw was like, well, like, no, you have to realize that just because they worked in the house doesn't mean that they were treated any better. Maybe like minusculely, but they were still like, especially because it was all women mostly, like they were prone to be like raped and beaten and things like that.
Sure, but
I'm like, and I get it, but then I'm also like, and then as I was listening to like Sam Harris and someone else talk, I'm like, it shouldn't, to me, that should, like, if that shouldn't be off limits to me just because I'm white, whereas it shouldn't be pro limits just because someone's black, like, oh, I can make that joke, but you can't.
Yeah.
Like, I just think that we kind of have to get rid of it entirely.
I guess, like, well, I think after hearing you say that, I guess, like, nobody should be making that joke.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
If I can't make it, then no one should, because it doesn't, like, just because I'm white or Bill Maher's white and says that joke, it doesn't take away from, like, the stigma and the role that, like, and, like, what happened to slaves that were working in the house.
Sure.
Like, it
or
doesn't.
Just, like, slaves in general.
Right, yeah, like, it doesn't negate any of that. Like, it's like, oh, well, he's black, so, like, what happened in the past wasn't as harmful. It's like, it still was.
Yeah, no, I just feel like nobody should be making that joke.
Right. And it's, like, kind of like before, it's like you have to, like, kind of almost. So, like, instead of getting mad, just be like, wow, that was super ignorant to say, and I won't say, like, take him off the air because he can say whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Which kind of goes back to, like, this whole, like, regressive left idea.
Also, like, censorship.
Right, exactly. And it's like, you should be able to say what you want, and I mean, just be like, wow, that was an ignorant thing to say, and, like, how he had people on to educate him better about it. Like, that makes sense. Like, let's just do that. Like, instead of just getting all, like, mad and pissy, why don't we just take it as a form of like a learning experience, like anything.
I don't want to get hung up on this issue, especially because we're trying to do smaller episodes.
Yeah.
But we're kind of in the range of like a longer one right now.
Yeah, we're like an hour in.
But
45.
But that's okay. What was I gonna say? Oh, so my first thing about that, I guess we can talk about this a little bit, is like, why was that on the forefront of his comedic palette? You know what I mean? Like, that's, if someone were saying like, come do some hard manual labor out there, like the first thing that comes to my mind is like definitely not that.
Yeah.
Like I wonder, that makes me think like that must have been like floating around somewhere in the front of his mind.
I don't know, but just like, so there's a CNN show called The History of Comedy, and just not even like one person, but I've heard many comedians say that, yeah, do comedians have like a fucked up brain? So like they'll pretty much think of anything, like they're quick and witty, and they'll think of anything to get a laugh. So I mean, it's kind of like why would like Anthony Jeselnik like make a joke about a dude that was just eaten by a shark, or make a joke about like throwing a rock and killing a baby? Like, I mean, why is that in his head? You know what I mean? It's like, I think it's one of those things where it's like quick and witty, and it's just kind of like saying anything. Yeah.
But those jokes like about like a dude getting eaten by a shark or like a baby aren't geared towards like a specific group of people. Unless you're talking about like shark survivors.
So what's worse, killing a baby or saying the N-word then? You know what I mean? Because if we're going to get into that, then you can get into really any of these wormholes.
But I don't think that's a fair argument.
Yeah. I mean,
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But
because like if you're gonna say like, well, why is that on his mind, like on Bill Maher's mind? Then why is,
because people who get eaten by sharks or like babies aren't like typically known as groups of people that are discriminated against.
Yeah. Okay, I could see that.
You know what I mean? And that's why I guess like I would like his joke, like Anthony Jeselnik, and I'm a fan of Anthony Jeselnik.
Oh yeah, me too.
I love his dry comedy, and so I'm not opposed to making like cutting edge jokes or anything.
Yeah.
But it just seems like Bill Maher, and I'm not like upset with him at all. Like I agree with you. Like he
fucked up
for sure, and like he'll move on. And if it keeps happening, then there might be a problem. But I don't really know what the point I was gonna make there.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. Is like, why is it on his mind? But I don't know. I think it's just like a comedian's brain is wired differently.
Yeah, that's what it was. Why is it?
And I mean, like, okay, well, have you ever had like caught yourself with like thinking certain things? It's like, ooh, why the fuck was I thinking that?
For
like,
sure. Yeah.
I think that could just be. It was one of those things where it was like
filter. Like
it's like subconscious that just kind of happened, and I don't know. It's just kind of.
It's just a weird joke. If I had to like categorize it in one category, I would just be like, this is just a weird thing to say.
Yeah, 100%. Like I heard it and I'm like, ugh. Like I wouldn't have gone with that one. Yeah, I don't know.
Did the audience laugh, or was it just like awkward?
It was kind of like an awkward thing.
What did the guy?
He was saying like, and like I feel bad for him because he got a lot of flack too, and everyone's like, he should have stepped up and said something. I'm like, at that point, that's.
Well, you're talking about a guy who's on a TV show.
Right.
Who, like, I used to work on, like, sets where you interviewed people and stuff. Yeah. Like, that whole environment, especially if you're interviewing, like, we used to interview, like, IT guys.
Yeah.
About their company and their new product. And these are guys who are, like, smart as hell at, like, programming.
Right.
Getting them to say, like, 5 sentences of scripted things when there's lights on, when it's completely quiet.
Right, and it's just like a foreign environment.
Oh, yeah, it's hard as hell. So this guy, like, he doesn't deserve any crap.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
He got, like, a bunch of shit for it. I'm like, you know.
Give him a break.
Yeah, it's like, even, like, when I call people out for dropping the N-word or, like, saying other stupid-ass derogatory things, like, it kind of, like, it takes a few seconds for me to, like, what the fuck did he just say? And then I'm like, oh, okay, hold on. So it takes like a few seconds to process, but you're on a TV show, like you can't just sit and think there for like 5 or 10 seconds of just like, awkwardness.
I probably would have just been like, whoa.
Yeah, like it's just a weird, like, and by the time I'm sure he wanted to say something, they were on to the next speaking point. So I mean, it's hard.
Oh, that's like cringy, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think that people got so, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we hit on it pretty well there. That's.
Yeah.
Just a strange joke, and as long as it's not like a habitual thing that he's doing, I let it go.
Yeah.
And he made efforts to make it right. So don't crucify the guy.
Yeah.
You know.
Definitely. Done.
Let's wrap up episode 5.
6.
6.
Yeah.
Is it? Episode 6.
Yeah.
All right. This one went a little longer than we wanted, but same thing applies. If you want to comment on our YouTube channel or anywhere on Facebook, we're going to try to get it up on Apple Podcasts. Feel free. We would love to hear some feedback. Thank you guys for listening.
Mm-hmm.
That's a wrap.